Scott's just jumping out, but I suspect he might jump in via a different method.
There's problems getting in by phone as well, so it may take a moment.
Yeah, cool. Oh, Scott in the same team. I wonder if that was me not having my volume up loud enough. That could have been my issue, or it could have been something else. One of the three. Okay.
Not to worry.
Cool. Scott's all good now. Perfect. So what I was saying was groups are a collection of Office 365 features. That's the best way to think about it. And we're going to cover off an agenda around files, shared calendar, conversations, planner, and how they work. Discuss private or public groups, and also touch on where do I store my stuff at the end of the session. There's been some huge changes happened to groups announced over the last 2 days in Microsoft Ignite, so we'll probably have to redo this session again in a couple of weeks. So the first thing was I had a quick poll that I wanted to cover off, which is what services are you using in Office 365. So I've just launched that now, and if you can complete that, that'd be great. So that'll pop up on your screen. Cool. Okay, so there's a good blend of people there. I think we've got everybody voted. Great. So you're using SharePoint for documents and lists. Good stuff. I'm just going to close that poll. Perfect. Now I'm just going to minimize this PowerPoint, and we're going to jump into Office 365. Cool. So when you come into, and I'll be demonstrating this all within perfect. So you should be able to see my screen now, demonstrating this within Office 365. So when you come in, we're in the normal Office 365 portal with the drop down, and you'll see in Mail, a list of my in-mail box, etc. And I've got these things called groups, and they sit there. You'll also see those in Office 2016. So I'm going to click on this group, which is Project Lake. I can choose that. I can also come in here and hit on the Discover button. So one of the interesting things is if you want to join a group, you can hit on Discover here, and it'll show groups that are there. Now, a trick here is that groups are either private or non-private, but you can see every group in a tenant. So this group here is some work we're doing. You can join it, but you'd have to be approved by us, which we're not going to do, but you can see the title and the security on there. So we're going to jump out of that and come in and join Project Lake, which is a group that we've already joined. So I could have selected on a group and joined myself, or I could have chosen to join that later, to discover and join it. So once you come into a group, you'll see up on the top of the screen. Just going to grab the pointer here. Up on the top of the screen, you can see the menu. So we've got Conversations, which is like an email distribution list, Files, a calendar, a notebook, and Planner. We'll cover all of those. Over on the right-hand side, you can see who the members of this group are. So there's 3 members, and you can come down and see some other settings related to the group. So the first area that I wanted to cover off is, and you can see that it's a public group with guests. So what that means is that that group is, anybody can join it. It's public, people can automatically join and leave, and it also has guests which are external members to this organisation. So this person here, B, boss at orangelandscape.co, is an external member to our organisation. The first area here is the conversations. So this is a mail list. So if I sent an email to list to the name of this group, which is Project Lake, it will end up in here. So if I create a new conversation, so this is like a distribution list, and send that, you'll see that that will come into the conversation view. And it's also come into my inbox over here for Cloud Coach. I can choose in the settings over on the right-hand side here, just move this a bit, in the group email settings, to have all or only replies or only mentions. And I can also choose whether I actually really want to see those notifications or whether I just want to go to the group. So the group email sessions, copy these messages to my inbox, copy replies, only stuff or only things that I'm actually mentioned in. So you can choose how much detail you get coming in, very similar to a shared mailbox. You can choose to have external parties email into the conversation view. Next step over is files. See here, I got an alert come out the side here, so that was the email coming through from Windows 10 notifications. So this is using the new modern document library look in OneDrive. So I can see here I'm automatically in the group. If I click on files here, I can see my normal OneDrive file, so I can jump between the two. And I've chosen to insert some files, and you can actually pin those to a group. So I can view and pin. If I chose I wanted to pin that into the top of the list, I can do that by pinning to the top. So that's just some new features in OneDrive. So that gives you a list of documents that you work there. You can also see documents that have been shared with the group as well if you wanted to. So you can come in, you see documents over here, you can change the lists, etc. So that's the group that you're there. You can follow the group as well. So it's a collection of files that you've got within that group. So nothing too outstandingly new in there. You can synchronize that down to your machine, and you'll be able to do that from the new version of OneDrive later on. If I come back up into my shared with us, I can see files that have been shared with that group. So this file here comes from my own OneDrive, and it's been shared into that group. If I wanted to navigate straight into my own OneDrive, just to give you a feel for the experience in, I've got my Cloud Coach files here, and I've got the groups below. So they always float in the same area. So when you're dealing with OneDrive, you'll see that the groups that you're a member of appear down the bottom as well. If you want to move between areas within the group, if you sit on the name of the group here, you'll see that it pops up a menu and you can choose where you want to go. So the next place we're going to go to is calendar. So you just hover on this. And it's a bit clunky, I think would be fair to say, on how you jump between areas. So we jump onto the calendar. The calendar works the same way as a mailbox. You can choose to subscribe to items in the calendar and have them in your calendar, or you can just overlay the calendar like you would within Outlook. So within a shared calendar. So it creates automatically a shared calendar. Remember, Webpack Groups is a collection of features in Office 365. So Project Lake is the group here, and you can see here Dig Lake and Dig Lake. They are in green, as in my calendar for Cloud Coach, and it's come through as an tentative. I haven't accepted it, but I could come into Project Lake. So that's useful where you've got lots of things that you perhaps don't want to accept. It might be a team meeting that you may or may not attend, but you want to have visibility if they do happen. Because if I delete this Project Lake and don't accept it, I've got no visibility that meeting's going on. So it allows you to have a shared calendar and choose when you want to bring those items through into your own personal calendar, or just view it externally. So that can be quite useful. The next area that I wanted to touch on in a group is, and again, just a little bit of a different look, but as a notebook. So it gives you a shared OneNote file. Which I've got here, and I've embedded some information here. So this is as a shared OneNote file. I could synchronize that down to my own machine if I wanted to by subscribing to this one notebook. You can put information in. It's interesting. This is the only one where you can't navigate back to the project. It pops it out into the OneNote app by itself. the last area in here is I wanted to talk about connections. So we're going to go back to the conversations, and then we'll touch on Planner at the end. So connections allow you to connect to other applications. So what we've done here is we've connected to Twitter. So now when anybody sends a tweet, so you'll see it here, and I'll show you in a second, when anybody sends a tweet to with a certain hashtag, in this case hashtag orange landscaping, that gets automatically sent through into the conversation view. So we see here that it's got it configured. So that could be good for monitoring a whole lot of things, Zendesk reports, MailChimps, etc. So quite useful to have external information that's relevant to the group coming in. So you'll see here that this tweet has come through, and I can view on that tweet straight away by jumping into Twitter. So it allows you to monitor external news sources, etc., and bring it through into a group. There we go, which is pretty cool. Or could be cool and useful. If you're on Twitter, don't forget to follow us. We put out a lot of information around changes, etc. there. The last area within groups is around Planner. So Planner, and I'm just going to navigate straight to it from the top, but you can get to it from the group, or you can get to it from the menu on the side coming into Planner here. So for those that haven't used Planner or seen Planner, it's a new tool within Office 365. It allows you to create lists of tasks. I think of it as similar to how you would deal with post-it notes on a wall and manage those. So for this example, we've got a hole and we've got to fill it. So to build a lake, you need to dig a hole and then you need to fill it with water. So we've got some tasks here, and those tasks are allocated to people. See, that one's been allocated to somebody that's external to the group, and we've got a task for water as well. I could add some more tasks. I could assign it to somebody. It's letting me choose people that are associated with the group. I could even set a date. So I'll set a due date of, go through from there. You can then jump into a chart, and you can see how many tasks you've got left and how that chart is progressing. So it's not Microsoft Project, but it certainly would replace what would be a task list or something like that within Outlook and Word. You can also come into the Planner Hub and you can start to look across all the projects that you've got on. So that's Planner. So we'll come back. I'm going to close a couple of these windows. So what do you get within Office 365? You get a conversation list, you get a calendar, you get files and a notebook and Planner. You get those all turned on. You can also link through to Power BI. You can't turn those individual features off, so it's a collection of Office 365 features. The last area in this members, you can see who's a member of that group, and you can add people into that group as well. You can also cancel a group if you wanted to. If you want to create a group, you just come down and hit the X button, and that will allow you to create a group either from here where I'm in my Office 365 OneDrive look, or I could do it from my email. That plus does the same to create a group. It takes about 5 minutes to create it once it's been set up to be provisioned, because it's setting up a SharePoint site and all those features. So it's not instantaneous. It does take a couple of minutes. I want to whip back to the PowerPoint now. So now we've got a couple of minutes left. And I'm just going to put this into perfect. So the question we often get asked is, where do I store my stuff? So let's have a look at this. If we've got OneDrive, items that are mine, and I may want to collaborate with one other person, it's a perfect place to store within OneDrive for Business. Office 365, it's great for my team. So my team can put documents there. We've got a small team for a project that I'm working on. SharePoint, great spot for where you put stuff for your company. So the difference between SharePoint and Office 365 is security for SharePoint team site is set by your company, by your administrator, whereas an Office 365 group is set by your team. Now, as I said, there's a few changes. So SharePoint and Office 365 groups are kind of merging together. So what that means is that each site also gets a group, and Yammer replaces conversations views in SharePoint, in a Office 365 group if you want it to. The detail on that is still to come in a couple of areas, especially around security settings. One of the other things too, so which should I use? That's a question we get asked a lot. So SharePoint gives you more security control because it's defined by the organization. Groups don't. Users define the security, so they let in the people they trust. There are some things that you can do within Azure Active Directory, but they're not out yet. So that's quite immature in its development yet in the 365 group security. Lists or forms, they don't happen within groups, but they do when the two start merging. So don't need lists. They're not included in groups at the moment. Multiple document libraries. A lot of organizations have multiple document libraries. Again, SharePoint will allow you to do that within one team site, whereas groups, it's one document library. Yes, you can share document libraries into other team sites. And if you need subsites that inherit permissions within SharePoint, then you need to use SharePoint, whereas a permission set for each group, in Office 365 groups. If you just want document storage, then SharePoint might be a good option because you can just put a document library in a site. Whereas if you think your users could benefit from some other features, then groups could be good. If you want a company intranet that's only an intranet-based tool, then SharePoint's good for that. Whereas a group or a team intranet will be more suited to an Office 365 groups, and some changes coming in that space. So a couple of scenarios to finish off. Let's have a look. Orange Landscape operate 3 divisions, and they have 3 offices, 2 divisions, and they have a shared services for finance and HR. So some scenarios you could think about there is that for a company SharePoint, you could use the company intranet. For the pools division, they might like to use groups. For the trees division, they could use group. For HR and shared services, where it sits across the organization and you want to control permissions tightly on that, SharePoint would be ideal. And for a marketing campaign, groups could be a good option. But it will be a blend of both. So just going back to that initial agenda, what have we covered off? We've covered off a very quick demonstration of files. You'll see that in your materials, so if you come into your into GoToMeeting, and this will come out in the link afterwards, there's a list of there's a link to some Office 365 information, including some videos which go through this again. Private or public group, so that's the first decision you need to make when you use a group. Is it going to be public or private? Yes, you can switch between the two. Bear in mind both of those, the name of the group and the description of the group is visible to everybody within the organization. So take care in how you name and describe groups, and also who is a member of that group is visible. That I believe will be turned off, but not in the next few months. And then where do I store my stuff? Do I put it in a group? Do I put it in a OneDrive or SharePoint? So first decision is it just my own files? OneDrive for Business is the place for that. Am I working with a small team that I need to set up and work on something? Group's really good and simple from that. Or is it information that you want to share with the whole organization? Then SharePoint is potentially one area, but that is blending across the two. Yammer is coming into groups as well, so you've got to see that. Scott, just to answer your question there around Outlook. If you're using, you need to be using, so I'll just pop up my version of Outlook here, and you'll see that I'm using Outlook 2016 Pro Plus. So if I come into favorites here and come down to groups, I can see the groups are here within my Outlook, so my desktop version. Otherwise, yeah, I will see it on my in the web version when you come in. Oh, you were looking at the portal version, okay. Yes, it could be turned off, but perhaps it normally is mostly turned on by default. So maybe there's no groups there and you need to create one, but by default it is turned on for organizations. I'm going to hang around for a couple of minutes if anybody's got any other specific questions that they wanted to cover. Otherwise, yeah, thanks for joining. Feel free, as I said, I'll just show you this link here. So if you come into Ripped Orange, all about Office 365 groups, we've put a couple of PowerPoints there that talks about what is there now and the future. The video on Yammer is quite good. There's a good example of Trafalgar Travel and how they use it. This has a little bit more on the roadmap, and especially how the news feed option is coming in. And there's some more information around groups there, so that's well worth a watch.